Have you ever been made to feel small? Like your voice didn't matter. Like your time, your dreams, your precious fleeting Saturdays meant nothing to anyone but you. Like you were just a tiny replaceable part in a big grinding machine, and the person holding the controls could just keep you running for as long as they pleased. This is a story about that feeling. That hot, tight feeling in your chest when you know you're being taken advantage of, but you feel like you can't say a word. It's a story about two 15-year-old boys, a wildly popular pizza place, and the beautiful, petty, glorious revenge that in the end tasted sweeter than any chocolate lava cake or cinnamon wheel on the entire menu. My real name isn't important, but for this story, you can call me Alex. It was the mid-2000s. Flip phones were cool, pop-punk anthems blasted from every other car, and I was 15, in that awkward space between kid and something else, trying to figure it all out. And like every other kid in my small Canadian town, I wanted a job, but not just any job. I had dreams. My first choice? The local arena. Oh man, picture it. The cool, clean air, the sound of skates cutting into the ice, the incredible smell of nacho cheese and popcorn swirling from the concession stand, being right in the heart of the buzz on a packed game night. It was the social hub. It was the place to be. It was cool. I aced the interview. The manager, Mr. Davies, he liked me. They wanted me. I could practically feel that crisp, clean, navy blue polo shirt. I was already there in my mind. And then, the crash. A rule. A stupid, technical, senseless rule. I was a few months shy of 16, just a handful of weeks, and because of some chemicals they used for the pool, some line in an insurance policy, they couldn't hire me. The door to my dream job slammed shut right in my eager teenage face. The disappointment, it was a physical thing, a heavy weight right here in my gut. I was shoved right back to square one. And in a small town like mine, square one wasn't pretty. Square one was a landscape of fast food drive-thrus and fluorescent-lit retail stores. The last thing I wanted was to put on some grease-stained polo shirt and have to ask for the 100th time that day, "Do you want fries with that?" So, with a sigh that felt like it came from the very bottom of my shoes, I bit the bullet. I applied to the busiest pizza place in town. You know the one. I don't have to say the name. Let's just say it rhymes with a certain kind of tree nut. The place was always packed, cars circling the lot like sharks, especially on weekends with their famous all-you-can-eat buffet. It was a gold mine, and it was run not by some seasoned, grown-up manager with experience. No, it was run by a bunch of college kids who suddenly found themselves with a tiny little slice of power. And let me tell you something for nothing. Nothing goes to a person's head faster than a cheap polyester manager shirt and a set of keys to a walk-in freezer. I got the job, kitchen staff. I figured, okay, this is temporary. It's a placeholder. I'd keep my head down, make my pizzas, scoop my sauce, and just bide my time. Wait for my birthday. Wait for the arena to call me back next year. It was a plan, a simple, humble plan. Little did I know, the head manager, let's call her Stacy, she had other plans. Plans that involved my weekends, my freedom, my dignity. The kitchen was pure chaos, the constant ear-piercing ding of the oven timer, the frantic shout of orders from the front, large pepperoni on the fly, the sticky, suffocating heat that clung to your skin. I worked weeknights. It was loud, it was messy, but it was bearable. I was the new kid, quiet, just learning the ropes. But here's the thing, I was good at it. I was fast. My hands learned the motions quickly. I caught on. And that right there was my first mistake. About a month in, Stacy pulled me aside. She had this smile, you know the kind? It was all teeth, but it never touched her eyes. Her eyes were calculating. "Alex," she said, her voice sweet like syrup, "you're one of our best, really. We've been watching you. We want to train you on doe. It's a special skill, a real privilege." Doe, the lifeblood of the whole operation. I'd seen the doe guy in the morning sometimes, a pale ghost in the pre-dawn dark, covered head to toe in flour, moving like a zombie. I knew exactly what it meant. It meant weekends. It meant early mornings, unspeakably early mornings. I don't know, I said. The hesitation was thick in my throat. The weekends, I kind of value my sleep and my time, you know, with friends and stuff. Stacy just waved a hand, a fluttery, dismissive motion. Her laugh was light, airy. It brushed away my concerns like they were crumbs on the counter. "Oh, don't you worry your head about that. We just need you to learn. We'll rotate you. You and Scott will both learn, and you'll only have to cover like one weekend shift a month. Just one. Cross my heart. We promise. It's just good for us to have backups. You'll be a lifesaver." Scott, my partner in crime, my best friend since we built lumpy, collapsing snow forts in kindergarten. He'd started working there a week after me. We were a package deal. We rode together, complained together, dreamed of quitting together. I looked at Stacy's face. She seemed so earnest, so believable. I was 15. When an adult in a position of authority made you a promise, you still wanted to believe them. You still thought their word meant something. So, I made my second mistake, the bigger one. I trusted her. "Okay," I said, the word feeling small. "One weekend a month. That's it." "That's it," she chirped, clapping her hands once. "You're a lifesaver, Alex, really." Oh, how wrong I was. The trap wasn't just set. It was already springing shut. And the sound of it locking, that final metallic click, would be the sound of their laughter.
Learning the doe shift, it was like being initiated into a secret, exhausting cult. The alarm would scream at 5:15 a.m. on a Saturday. Outside my window, pitch black, silence, total peace. While my friends were lost in dreams of video game victories and stacks of pancakes, I was stumbling around my dark room, pulling on the same wrinkled work clothes, my breath making little ghosts in the cold morning air. The pizza joint at 6 a.m. was a different beast. Hollow, quiet in a way that felt heavy. Just the deep, constant hum of the massive walk-in fridge and the cruel, buzzing glare of the fluorescent lights. They made everything look pale, washed out. And then the marathon began, a relentless 6-hour grind. You'd fire up the giant mixer. The sound in that silent room was deafening. It felt like it shook your bones. My voice became a flat, procedural recitation, mirroring the monotony. Flour clouds would explode into the air, coating everything in a fine, pale dust. While that batch churned, you were already oiling pans, slick, greasy work. Then you'd haul the heavy, wet mass of dough out. It was alive, cold, and heavy. Portion it, stretch it, press it into the pans, rack it, wheel the rack into the warm, humid speed proofer. An hour later, transfer it to cold storage. And then you'd look at the clock, and you'd start the next batch, and the next, and the next. No stopping, no sitting, just you, the endless flour, and the clock on the wall, ticking so slowly toward noon. My hands grew red and raw. My lower back ached with a dull, constant throb. But Scott and I learned it. We nailed it. We became this efficient, silent dough-making machine. And for that first weekend, after we finished, it felt almost like pride. We'd mastered something tough. We'd held up our end of the bargain. We did our one weekend shift. We trusted them. Then came the new schedule. The sound effect, a sharp, loud record scratch, The grinding synth music cuts off instantly. Total silence. My voice shifts to present tense immediacy. Young, confused, hopeful it's a mistake. I'm staring at the paper tacked to the back office door, the weekly schedule. My name, scrawled in pen next to Saturday Doe, 6 a.m. I blink. My brain stutters. Maybe it's a mistake, a typo. My eyes scan down the list, and there it is, Scott's name, Sunday Doe, 6 a.m. My heart, it just dropped. It fell right out of my chest and sank into my cheap, greasy, non-slip shoes. This wasn't the deal. This wasn't one weekend a month. This was every Saturday. That was every Sunday. This was our new, permanent reality. Faint background sounds of a restaurant, a cash register chime, muffled voices. My voice tensed, trying to sound assertive but young and shaky. I found Stacy up front by the counter. She was counting money rolls with another manager, this guy Kyle, both in their early 20s. They were laughing, replaying some story from a party last night. I swallowed hard. Stacy. My voice came out tighter, thinner than I wanted. The schedule. It has me on Doe this Saturday and Scott on Sunday. She didn't even look up from the cash. Her fingers kept flicking through bills. Yeah? Flat. Uninterested. So, we learned it. We did our shift. The deal was one weekend a month, rotating. You promised. A beat of silence. Then, that's when she looked up. And she smiled. But it wasn't the fake, earnest smile from before. That was gone. This was a smirk, a curl of the lip. Her eyes were bright, not with kindness, but with pure, unadulterated amusement. Kyle snorted a little laugh beside her, shaking his head like I'd just said the cutest, dumbest thing he'd ever heard. Alex, Stacy said. Her tone was like syrup, but poison syrup, dripping with condescension. We need you on Doe. You're good at it. The other guys hate it. Consider it a compliment. But you said, I tried, my voice cracking, I said what I needed to say to get you trained, Stacy interrupted, her smirk widening into something cruel. Look, weekends are our busiest time. We need reliable Doe guys. You and Scott are it. She leaned forward just a little. End of story. Kyle couldn't help himself. He chimed in, his voice all fake buddy-buddy. Come on, man, it's not so bad. Free pizza. He elbowed Stacy and they shared a look. A quick, glittering look that said, clear as day, can you believe this kid? The humiliation, it was a physical heat. It shot up my neck and burned my cheeks. I was 15, but in that moment, I felt 10 years old. I was being pat on the head by the big kids and told to run along and play. The promise was a lie. A tactical, calculated lie to get two dumb teenagers to lock themselves into the job nobody else wanted. The sound effect, a distant mixer sound, returns faintly, now sounding more like a prison workshop. My voice hardened, angry, clenching. That Saturday shift was the longest of my life. Every scoop of flour didn't just make dough, it felt like a betrayal. Every perfect batch I produced was a monument to their deception. Scott came in Sunday and got the same treatment, the same smirk, the same chuckle from Kyle. We were the joke. The weekend doughboys, the trapped teenagers they thought were too desperate, too needy to ever quit. My voice becomes quiet, defeated, admitting a painful truth. And the worst part? They were right. For a while. We did need the jobs. The arena was a distant dream, months away. We were stuck, truly stuck in our flour-coated prison, serving a sentence for a crime we didn't commit. The laughter of those college kid managers, it echoed in the kitchen even when they weren't there. A constant reminder. To them, we weren't people. We weren't Alex and Scott. We were resources, warm bodies to fill the early morning shift. And they believed with every fiber of their being that we would just take it. Music returns. The synth beat is slower now, heavier. Underneath it, a new sound emerges. A low, deep cello note, like a simmering anger. It pulses slowly, threateningly. My voice changes. The defeat melts away, replaced with a cold, gathering focus. The voice drops lower, more deliberate. But what they didn't account for, what they never saw coming, was the quiet rage that builds in someone who's been laughed at, who's been made to feel small. They didn't see the plans beginning to form, deep in the mind of a cornered teenager. They were so busy looking down on us, they never thought to look out for us. They were about to learn a very important, very expensive lesson. A final deliberate pause. The music holds on a tense, pending note. Never underestimate the kid who has nothing left to lose, and a friend who has his back. Music. The low cello note swells and then transforms into the first few notes of the next section's more hopeful melody, creating a transition.
Weeks bled into months, a slow, beige, gluten-filled bleed. Saturday, dough. Sunday, dough. Saturday, dough. My life became a blur, a constant, exhausting cycle. I'd come home, a ghost. My clothes, my hair, even my eyelashes, dusty white with flour. I smelled like a bakery gone wrong, yeast and cheap vegetable oil. My social life, it crumbled. While my friends were sharing stories about road trips or movies or just hanging out, my big story was the time the industrial mixer started smoking and I panicked. My resentment, it wasn't a spark anymore. It was a pilot light, a small blue flame in my gut. Always on, always burning, just waiting for fuel. Then, one ordinary soul-crushing Saturday, I dragged myself through my front door, a flower phantom. All I wanted was to dissolve into my bed and not exist for 10 hours. My parents were in the living room, and my mom, she had a look on her face. Something in her eyes I couldn't quite place. Not bad, but serious, careful. Sound effect. The hopeful piano melody pauses on a single sustained note. She said it so calmly. The arena called. I stopped dead. The arena? That name, it felt like a memory from another lifetime. A dream belonging to a different Alex. A free Alex. What? I managed to croak out. My voice was a dry whisper. My dad chimed in. I could see a small, cautious smile playing on his lips. They called today, said they're doing some early hiring for next season. They wanted to know if you were still interested. In that single moment, the whole world shifted. The heavy, slow-motion feeling I'd been living in, it just snapped into sharp, crystal-clear focus. The crushing fatigue, it evaporated. Poof, gone. The arena, the cool echoes, the crisp, clean uniform, the sound of skates. My real dream job, it was all right there, back on the table. I have to call them back, I blurted out, my heart suddenly hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape. My mom finally broke into a full, warm smile. They said to come in Monday, after school, for another interview. Monday couldn't come fast enough. The weekend dough shift was a fog. I was a body going through the motions, but my mind was already in that arena office. Monday after school, I walked in. Mr. Davies, the manager. Older, serious. He had a calm, steady authority. No smirks, no games. You could feel it in the room. He shook my hand, a firm, solid grip. Alex, he said, we were impressed with you last time. The age rule was unfortunate, but your birthday is coming up soon, correct? In a few weeks, I said, trying so hard to keep my voice steady, my professional. Good. We'd like to offer you a position on the concessions and facilities team. The official offer will come the day after your birthday. Does that work for you? It was all I could do not to jump across that desk and hug this serious, wonderful man. Yes, I said, the word bursting out of me. Absolutely, yes, sir. But then, my brain, fueled by months of shared misery with Scott, it sparked a new idea, a better idea. Sir, I ventured, leaning forward a little, are you hiring more than one person?
Mr. Davies gave a single thoughtful nod. We need a small team, yes. Why? I took the deepest breath of my life. I have a friend, Scott. He's my age. His birthday is around the same time. Sir, he's the hardest worker I know. He's reliable, he's smart, and he's currently he's getting taken advantage of at our current job. I can vouch for him completely. A beat of silence. The music holds. Mr. Davies studied me. His eyes were measuring, but not unkind. He saw my earnestness. He saw I wasn't just asking for a pal. I was recommending a real worker. He gave a slow, approving nod. All right, have him bring me his resume. If he's half as good as you say, I'll make sure he gets an interview too. Music swells into a full, triumphant, beautiful crescendo. It's the sound of shackles breaking. Walking out of that arena, I felt like I could fly. The invisible weight I'd been carrying for months, gone. The thick walls of my flower-coated prison, they had just developed the most beautiful, massive crack. Sunlight was pouring in. I called Scott immediately. His phone barely rang once. Dude, you will not believe this. I told him everything. The sheer, unadulterated joy in his voice, it was the best sound I'd heard in months, maybe years. A shout of pure relief. We were getting out. We were escaping. The music, the triumph fades. The melody lowers, slows, transforming into something else. A low, steady, pulsing synth returns. But it's different now. It's not the sound of grinding work. It's the sound of a plan forming, a conspiratorial, whispered rhythm. As that first euphoria faded, a new feeling began to settle in my gut. It was cold, it was calculated, and it was so sweet. We were leaving, yes, but we didn't have to just leave. Stacy, Kyle, the whole laughing crew, they thought they had us pinned. They thought their smirk was the final word. They thought we'd just slink away, two defeated kids, tails between our legs, and they'd just find another pair of suckers. Oh no, we were going to leave a message they would hear loud and clear, a message written not in words, but in unmade dough. The escape was secured. Now it was time for the finale. It was time for Plan B. It was time for petty revenge. The music's pulse becomes more pronounced, like a steady, determined heartbeat. It was time for petty revenge. The music transitions smoothly into the more tense, anticipatory cue for the next section.
They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but ours was going to be served at room temperature and completely uncooked. The plan formed that night over a crackling landline phone with Scott, the cord stretched across my bedroom. It was beautiful in its simplicity, devastating in its pettiness, and it all hinged on one perfect, crucial fact. See, this wasn't some big city franchise with backup supplies trucked in. This was a small town. The dough Scott and I made from 6 a.m. to noon, that was it. That was the lifeblood for the entire day. Friday dinners, a huge Saturday lunch rush, the Saturday night family crowds, and the famous, crazy, all-you-can-eat Sunday buffet. It all depended on those golden racks of perfect, proofed dough in the cold storage. Day-old dough? A sad, flat last resort. It made garbage pizzas. And Stacy, in her infinite wisdom of pinching every penny, always ran the place with the absolute minimum staff. There was no backup, no plan B. The servers who laughed with her, they didn't know the mixer from a microwave. They couldn't just step in. If the dough wasn't made, the store was dead in the water. Music becomes more structured, like a plan being laid out. Each beat marks a step. Our plan had two phases, two perfect, elegant acts. Phase 1, the silent shift. My move. This coming Saturday would be my last dough shift, but I wouldn't be making dough. Oh, I'd clock in. I'd be there at 6 a.m., legally on the clock, but I would not touch a single grain of flour, not one drop of oil. The mixer would stay silent. The proofer would stay empty.
I would quite literally do nothing. I'd just be present, and I'd wait. Phase 2, the grand exit. When Stacy and the opening crew sauntered in around 11:30, expecting to see racks of ready-to-go dough, they'd find me, standing there, clean, apron in hand, and I would quit. Not over the phone, not by a note on the counter, in person, looking her right in her smug, laughing eyes. Then Scott would execute the same play the very next day, Sunday. A 1-2 punch, a weekend knockout. Narrator's tone becomes analytical, proud of the cleverness. The beauty was in the legality and the sheer psychological warfare. By being there, I guaranteed they'd have to pay me for my shift. They couldn't withhold pay for hours I was physically present. But by not doing a single ounce of the work I was expected to do, I would create a catastrophe of their own making. They'd have to either scramble and fail miserably to make dough during the lunch rush, or they'd have to close the store on a Saturday, their busiest, most profitable day. It was a risk. They could fire me on the spot, but Scott and I, we had our arena lifeline now, our golden tickets. We had nothing left to lose, and everything to gain in the form of sweet, sweet vindication. Music. The sneaky tune continues, but it becomes more personal, internal. It underscores the waiting game. The week crawled by. Every smirk from Stacy, every snide comment from Kyle, every time my aching hands had to oil another stupid pan, I just stored it away in a mental vault, fuel for the coming fire. Friday night, I packed my work clothes, not like I was going to a job, like a soldier preparing for battle. This wasn't a uniform anymore. It was a costume for the performance of a lifetime. Sound effect, a loud classic alarm clock ringing. It cuts through the music. Saturday morning, 5:15. The alarm screamed, but this time, no dread, none. In its place, an electric, buzzing anticipation, a current under my skin. I got dressed in the dark, a small, hard, undeniable smile fixed on my face. My parents, who knew about the arena job but not the plan, gave their usual sleepy goodbye. Have a good shift, honey. Little did they know, their son was about to become an agent of chaos. Sound effect, a car door closing, engine starting, driving sounds that fade into the hum of an idle engine stopping, a car door opening and closing. I drove to the empty parking lot. The pizza place loomed in the dark, its bright sign dead. I used my key. Click. The familiar sound of the lock, the blast of cold, dark, stale air, the deep hum of the ridge. But this time, I didn't turn towards the kitchen. I walked past it, into the dining area. I slid into a booth. The vinyl seat creaked, and I sat. Music fades down to a near silent, tense, sustained synth hum, almost inaudible. The world of the empty restaurant becomes the dominant sound. Narrator's tone, quiet, internal, describing a surreal experience. For the first 30 minutes, it felt strange, wrong even. A lifetime of being told to work hard, to be productive, screamed in the back of my head. But then, I remembered. Stacy's laugh, the broken promise, every stolen Saturday morning, every exhausted Sunday afternoon I'd lost. The guilt evaporated. I got up, went to the staff cooler. I grabbed a carton of the good chocolate milk, the kind we weren't really supposed to touch. I went back to my booth. I drank it slowly, savored it, and I watched. I watched the sky through the big front window turn from solid black to a deep velvety blue to a pale, fragile gray. I checked my watch. 8 a.m. Normally, I'd be on my third batch, sweating, covered head to toe in a second skin of flour. My back would be screaming. Instead, I was perfectly clean, sipping chocolate milk, twirling my thumbs. Voice fills with awe at the audacity. The mixer was a silent, hulking metal statue. The flour bags were plump and undisturbed. The oil jug was sealed tight. The sheer audacious nothingness of what I was doing, it was almost overwhelming. This was it, the ultimate act of quiet rebellion. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't breaking anything. I was just not doing. And in that not doing, I held all the power. The silent tension builds. The narrator's breathing becomes slightly audible, a little faster. The clock ticks on. 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. My heart started to change its tune, from a steady, determined beat to a quicker, thumping rhythm. Showtime. The opening crew would be here any minute. I finished the last of the chocolate milk. I stood up. I took a deep, steadying breath that filled my lungs. I let it out slowly. I walked to the front near the register. My hands were steady. I took off my apron. I folded it neatly, precisely. I placed it on the counter. I placed my name tag on top of it. Then I turned, and I waited, standing calmly in the empty, silent restaurant, a soldier at ease, right before the storm. Sound effect. A car engine approaches, stops, gravel crunches, a distant car door, another, muffled laughter from outside. Outside, a car pulled in, then another. I saw her silhouette, Stacy, laughing with another server as they walked toward the door. Her key clicked in the lock. Clunk. The door swung open. Music and sound effects cut to complete, dead silence. Hold this silence for 2 full seconds. Narrator's tone, pure observational calm, watching the dominoes fall. She stepped in, still mid-laugh. She flicked on the bank of lights with a loud thwap. And then she saw me, standing there, not in the kitchen, not covered in flour, just standing, clean, calm. Her smile faltered, died on her lips. Her eyes darted past me, toward the kitchen door, then snapped back to me, a flicker of pure, unadulterated confusion. "Alex?" Her voice was laced with annoyance. "Why are you just standing there? Is the dough in the proofer? We open in 30 minutes. I looked her straight in her eyes. No fear, no anger, just calm, clear certainty. And I delivered my one, simple, perfect line. I quit.
For a solid 3 seconds, Stacy just stared. You could almost hear it, the grinding halt inside her head, the mental gears seizing up. Quit? But the dough, the shift, the schedule, her whole smug manager brain blueprint of the world. It had no box for this, no file labeled Teenage Doughboy Mutiny. Then the smirk tried to make a comeback. It was weaker, a ghost of its former self propped up by pure disbelief. She let out a short, harsh puff of air, a laugh with no joy in it. "You're quitting? Now? Seriously?" Seriously. My voice was a flat line, steady. I didn't smile, I didn't frown. I was a statue of absolute calm. She crossed her arms, huffing, trying to puff herself up, to reclaim that lost authority. "Whatever, we were gonna fire you anyway. You've had a bad attitude for weeks." It was a pathetic, transparent bluff, the last desperate move of someone with no real cards left to play. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then, she couldn't help herself. She had to dig. She shook her head and that familiar, ugly condescension crept back into her voice. "You know, if it were me," she said, as if giving me life advice, "I wouldn't have even shown up. I'd have just not come in, screwed them over properly. Showing up to quit? That's just stupid." Then that rising violin note reached its peak and held. Ah, there it was. The final, beautiful, unforced error. She was handing me the victory on a silver platter, and she didn't have a clue. I let her words hang in the thick air between us, let her think she'd scored a point. Then, slowly, deliberately, I reached into my pocket. I pulled out my time card. I held it up between us, like evidence. "Oh, I showed up," I said, my voice dropping to a quiet, deliberate, almost conversational tone.
I've been here since 6, clocked in, right on time. I gestured with my chin, just a slight nod toward the kitchen door. I just didn't make any dough. I watched the words hit her. I just didn't make any dough. Her eyes, they widened. The color just drained from her face, like someone had pulled a plug. Her head snapped toward the kitchen door, then snapped back to me, her eyes now huge with dawning horrific comprehension. The smirk wasn't just gone, it was obliterated, wiped from existence. She took a stumbling, clumsy step toward the kitchen, shoved the door open. The other servers, who'd been lurking behind her, frozen, now crowded into the doorway. And they saw it. The spotless, silent mixer. The full, untouched bags of flour. The clean, dry, empty dough table. The hollow, silent speed proofer. The cold storage holding nothing but yesterday's sad, flat leftovers. It was a scene of perfect industrial inaction, a monument to my rebellion. Stacy turned back to me. Her face, it was a masterpiece, a canvas of shock, of rage, of pure stomach-dropping panic. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, but no sound came out, not a whisper. She was, as they say, completely and utterly speechless. "So," I continued, my voice still calm as I placed my time card neatly on the counter next to my apron, "you'll need to pay me for this morning's shift. 4 hours, at minimum wage, of course." I glanced up at the clock on the wall, 11:35 a.m. "And, well," I said, giving a small, polite shrug, "good luck with the lunch rush. You might want to start mixing. Or maybe—" A beat, a final, gentle twist of the knife. "Just flip the sign to closed. Later." I didn't wait for a response. I turned. I walked to the front door. I pushed it open. The morning sun hit my face. It was warm. It was free. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The image of her stricken, pale face was already burned into my memory, a permanent trophy. I got into my beat-up car, started the engine, and I drove away. Not home. I drove to the park, sat by the river, and I just let it all wash over me. The enormity of it. The silence around me was no longer heavy. It was peaceful. It was mine. Meanwhile, back at the pizza prison, chaos was unfolding. Scott, who was scheduled for a normal evening shift, got a call around 2 p.m. His phone screamed with Kyle's number. He told me later that Kyle's voice was a frantic, angry snarl. "Where's Alex? What did you idiots do? Do you know how to make dough? We need you to come in right now." Scott, playing it perfectly, feigned pure, innocent ignorance. "Alex quit? Wow, that's crazy. And no, sorry, I can't come in. I have, plans." He said he could hear it, clear as day through the phone, muffled shouting, and then the beautiful, definitive sound of the phone being slammed hard so the connection died. The store, as we found out through the grapevine of other kids in town, did not open that Saturday. The sign stayed firmly on closed. Cars would pull into the lot, pause, and drive away, confused. Online orders were canceled with terse, apologetic emails. Stacy and the skeleton crew had tried. In a panicked, sweaty frenzy, they'd attempted to make dough on the fly during what should have been the lunch rush. It was a total disaster. The dough was a gluey, unusable mess. The kitchen was left looking like a war zone. And they'd had to make the call. The one call no manager ever wants to make. To their district manager. To confess that the entire store was shut down because two 15-year-olds had outmaneuvered them. The financial loss for a busy Saturday, significant. The humiliation, absolute. But the story, my friends, was not over. Because tomorrow was Sunday, and Scott had a date with destiny and a very specific, unmade batch of dough.
Saturday night, Scott and I talked on the phone for hours. His voice vibrated through the receiver, a mix of pure awe and nervous excitement. "Dude," he whispered like we were spies. "The whole town is talking about it. Jenny from school said she drove by at like 2 p.m. and the place was dark. The closed sign was up all day. What did you even say to her?" I recounted the whole story. The smirk, the time card, the look on her face, and his laughter. It wasn't just laughter. It was the pure, unfiltered sound of justice. "My turn tomorrow," he said, and his tone changed. Hard, solid. "I'm gonna do it exactly like you. Clock in, sit, wait." "They might be ready for you," I warned, the big brother in me coming out. "They might try to stop you. Maybe they'll have someone else come in early to watch you." "Let 'em try," Scott shot back, and I could hear the grin in his voice. It was fearless. "If someone else is there, I'll just quit on the spot anyway. The point is, they won't have me to make the dough, and they definitely didn't train anyone else." He was right. Stacy's whole strategy, her exploitation playbook of relying on two trapped, dependable kids, had backfired spectacularly. It left her dangerously vulnerable. She had put all her eggs in 2 baskets, and we were about to walk off with the baskets. Music, the drone swells, sound of a car engine starting, then fading, a key in a lock, a click. Sunday morning, 6 a.m. Scott executed phase 2 with military precision. He drove to the empty lot, used his key, clocked in. But instead of turning toward the kitchen, he walked into the dining room. He chose a different booth than mine, superstitious maybe. He sat down. He'd even brought a school book and he pretended to read, his ears straining for any sound in the silent building. He told me later, those were the most nerve-wracking 3 hours of his life. Every tiny creak of the old building made him jump. Every hum of the fridge sounded like a distant voice. He was half expecting Stacy or Kyle to come bursting through the door at any second, screaming, ready to confront him. But no one came. The silence was total, oppressive. It seemed our move on Saturday had been so shocking, so completely unprecedented, that it had paralyzed them. They probably spent Saturday night in a panicked, finger-pointing meeting, trying to figure out how to salvage Sunday. They likely made the worst assumption of all. They assumed Scott would just not show up, that he'd be too scared. They assumed wrong. At 11:15 a.m., 15 minutes before the opening crew was due, Scott moved. He folded his apron with neat, sharp creases. He placed his name tag on top. He walked to the front and stood by the register, his heart pounding a frantic, heavy drum solo against his ribs. Crunch. Gravel in the parking lot. The door opened. Music and sounds. All music and ticks cut. Dead silence. But it wasn't Stacy. It was Kyle, alone. He looked like he hadn't slept, exhausted, furious, with dark bags under his bloodshot eyes. He froze in the doorway, his hand still on the knob when he saw Scott, standing there, clean, ready. The look on Kyle's face? It was different from Stacy's. Stacy's was shock. Kyle's was pure, unadulterated rage. He didn't bother with a manager mask, not today. "You," he spat, pointing a shaking finger across the room. "You little punk. Do you have any idea what you and your idiot friend did yesterday? We lost thousands. The district manager is breathing down our necks." "I quit," he said. His voice was clear, firm, no shake in it at all. Kyle's face flushed a dangerous purplish red. "You're quitting now after what happened yesterday?" He took a step forward, his voice rising to a shout. "You're dead, you hear me? You're both dead in this town. No one will ever hire you again." And Scott, to his eternal credit, didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He met Kyle's glare head on.
"I've already got a new job," he said, his voice calm, almost friendly. "Starts in 2 weeks, at the arena." He let that sink in. He watched Kyle's rage momentarily stutter, flicker with confusion. "The arena? And I've been clocked in since 6 a.m., so you need to pay me for my shift." He paused, delivered the kill shot with polite, almost innocent clarity. "I didn't make any dough, by the way. Thought you should know." Junk. Kyle exploded. A torrent of shouted curses, threats, and insults filled the empty restaurant. He called us every name in the book, words we'd never repeat. He slammed his fist on the counter so hard the napkin dispenser jumped. His voice cracked with sheer, helpless fury. And Scott just stood there. He took it. He was a rock, a statue in the middle of a hurricane. Every screamed word, every pathetic threat only made the victory sweeter. This wasn't the sound of power. This was the sound of a bully who just had his favorite toy snatched away and snapped in half right in front of him. Finally, Kyle ran out of steam. His chest was heaving. He just stood there, glaring, pure hatred pouring off him in waves. Scott didn't say another word about the rant. He simply reached for the door handle. "Good luck today," he said with a final polite nod, like he was wishing it on a stranger. "You're gonna need it." And he pushed the door open. The same cheerful, tinny ding of the bell. And he walked out into the same beautiful, sunny freedom I'd tasted the day before. The 1-2 punch was complete. Saturday, shut down. Sunday, shut down again. A full weekend of revenue obliterated. The busiest, most profitable days of the week for a pizza place turned into a dark, silent, doughless disaster. We learned later the district manager had to drive in from another city just to manage the store on Sunday. They had to borrow emergency dough from a location an hour away, opening late with a reduced, pathetic menu. The all-you-can-eat sign was taken down in shame. The reputation of the place took a hit it never really recovered from in our small town. For years, people joked about the Great Dough Rebellion. And Stacy and Kyle, they were both demoted and transferred to other stores within a month. Their little kingdom of condescension, the empire built on our stolen weekends, crumbled to dust. And all because they'd underestimated the 2 youngest, quietest guys in the kitchen. But for Scott and I, our story was just beginning its best chapter.
2 weeks later, the day after my 16th birthday, 2 official offer letters arrived. One for me, one for Scott. We walked into Mr. Davies' office together, wearing our best clothes. No flour, no grease stains, and we signed the paperwork. The feeling of putting pen to that clean, crisp, important document, I can't describe it. It was the complete polar opposite of seeing our names scrawled on that greasy, pinned-up schedule on the pizza place door. This was a beginning, a real one. Our first day at the arena, it was a revelation. Everything we dreamed of and more. The air was cool. It smelled of ice, of popcorn, of clean concession stand soap, not hot grease and yeast. Our uniforms were crisp polo shirts and clean khakis. Mr. Davies trained us himself, patiently, respectfully. He showed us how to work the register, how to stock the coolers, how to maintain the stands. He looked us in the eye when he talked to us. There were no smirks, no broken promises. If he said a shift ended at 10 p.m., guess what? It ended at 10 p.m. If we had a question or a concern, he listened. We weren't treated like disposable teenagers. We were treated like valuable, trainable members of a real team. The work was hard. Game nights were a wild, joyful blur of selling hot dogs and sodas to a roaring crowd. But it was fair, and we were doing it together. We worked there for the rest of high school, through thrilling hockey championships and loud concert tours, through quiet summer camps and lazy public skates. We got raises. We got more responsibility. We made real, lasting friends with the other staff. That job, it taught us about integrity, about real teamwork. It showed us what true leadership looks like. It wasn't about power over someone. It was about respect for everyone. And every so often,
On a quiet, peaceful night after a big game, when we were the last ones there, mopping the empty stands, one of us would bring it up. Scott would lean on his mop handle, a grin spreading across his face. "Hey, remember the dough shift?" And I'd laugh, the sound echoing in the vast, quiet space. "Remember Stacy's face?" And we'd both crack up, the laughter bouncing off the bleachers. It became our fondest story, not just because of the PettyRevenge, though, man, that was sweet, but because of what it represented. It was our line in the sand, the moment we learned deep in our bones that we didn't have to accept being treated poorly. The moment we learned that even when you feel completely powerless, you often have more leverage than the people in charge ever realize. We learned to stand up for ourselves, and most importantly, we learned to stand up for each other. We'd drive by the old pizza place sometimes. It was still there, but the lot never seemed as full. The bright, cheery glow it once had dimmed. We heard through the grapevine it got a reputation, a bad one, a place known for terrible management, where local kids got burned. Karma, it seemed, had done its cleanup work long after we'd left the scene. See, our revenge wasn't about violence. It wasn't about screaming or breaking things. It was about leverage. It was about finally understanding the true value of our own labor and having the courage to withdraw it at the most critical moment. We didn't break a single law. We didn't lay a finger on anyone. We simply gave back exactly what we had received. A complete and total disregard for our agreed-upon terms. We held up a mirror to their exploitation, and the reflection broke their whole weekend. The lessons from that year, they stuck with us. Long after we hung up our arena polos for the last time. Long after we went off to college, to careers, to our own adult lives. Lesson 1. A promise is a currency. When someone in a position of power makes you a promise, pay close attention. If they break it once casually, they'll do it again. Their word is a window straight into their character. Lesson 2. Your time has value, real value. Never let anyone convince you that your time, your youth, your weekends are less important than theirs. They are not. Whether you're 15 or 50, your time is the one thing you can never, ever get back. Spend it wisely. Spend it with people who respect it. Lesson 3. Quiet people are always observing. Just because someone is young or quiet or doesn't complain out loud doesn't mean they don't see the injustice. It doesn't mean they aren't planning. Underestimation is the Achilles heel of every arrogant person who ever held a little bit of power. Lesson 4. Loyalty is a two-way street. Employers earn loyalty through fairness, through respect, through honesty. They are not entitled to it just because they sign your check. Blind loyalty to someone who exploits you, that's a prison, and you hold the key. Lesson 5. The best revenge is a life well lived. The momentary triumph of shutting down the pizza place, it was sweet, sure, but the lasting victory, that was the job at the arena, the skills we learned, the self-respect we gained, the unbreakable friendship forged in that petty, beautiful fire. We didn't let their poor treatment define us. We used it as fuel to propel us towards something infinitely better. So, if you're out there right now, feeling small, feeling trapped, feeling laughed at by your version of Stacy and Patty, remember the Doughboys. Remember that sometimes the most powerful action is a calculated, peaceful inaction. Sometimes the way you choose to leave a place speaks louder than anything you ever did while you were there. Plan your exit, be smart, be legal, and when the time is right, stand calmly, look them right in the eye, and hand back the apron. Then turn, walk into the sun. Your arena is waiting.